First, I would like to say that this is still going on, and I will keep updating as more stuff goes on. I'm a female, mid-20s, and currently living in an old rundown apartment complex. I'm stuck here until I can afford another since I have no family where I am. I moved into my apartment when I was 19 for college, and this was a great opportunity for me to be on my own since my parents could be smothering at times. My dad was concerned about me since I showed him and my mom photos of the apartment building. He mentioned that it looked sketchy and I should come home. I didn't want to go home, and my dad had issues letting me leave since we are close, but I promised him I would keep in touch. I do wish I would have listened to him and went home after what happened during my first week at the apartment. Getting out of my car with my luggage, this was the first time I was checking into my very own place. At first, from the outside, the apartment complex looked decent, and I was surprised the rent was not that much. Walking inside the lobby area, I could already see this place needed fixing up inside. Both of the elevators were broken, and the landlord was horrifying to even look at. He looked about mid-50s, greasy hair, and an overweight beer belly that he was not afraid of showing off to people. All around, he was someone that you would not want to be around. Of course, he welcomed me and showed me all the amenities in the apartment, but I couldn't help but notice every few minutes he would look me over. He would say something like, "We don't have many pretty ladies coming here. I am pleased to know you picked this place out. Don't worry about safety. I'm the only person with a key to the doors in this complex." That was not comforting at all. In fact, it was horrifying and I wanted to leave fast, but my money was already tied into the place and I didn't want to lose my deposit. I acted like I was paying attention, but now my body was tense and feeling really uncomfortable. His voice broke my thoughts. "Come with me. I will show you to your room." I prayed he wouldn't put me on the top floor because of the elevators being broken. My suitcase weighed a ton and I really didn't want to take the stairs. There were 5 floors to this apartment complex, and of course he placed me on the 5th. He started to go up the stairs, but he was waiting for me. The prick wouldn't even help me with my luggage, but maybe that was good since I didn't want his sweaty hands to touch me. I could see his jaw tense as he eyed me and reached his hand out to take one of my suitcases. "Here, precious, let me take one of those suitcases for you." I told him no, and that I could handle it. We managed to make our way to the room and he unlocked the door and opened it, letting me inside first. At first glance, the place was surprisingly decent. It was self-furnished since I didn't have the money to get furniture for the place. The room was nice too. It was a 1-bedroom with a kitchen and living room combined. It was like a small studio apartment. I noticed there were a few cracks on the wall, and the carpet looked like it needed to be replaced. Once I got my keys from him and the creepy landlord left, I started to unpack. It took me 4 hours to bring all of my boxes from my car to my room and fully make myself comfortable. I was proud to have my very own place, even with the creepy landlord. School started in a week, and it was close to my college, so it was beneficial for me too. The first 3 days in my apartment, everything seemed fine, except at night I would hear weird noises coming from the walls next to my room, which shows me that my neighbor was making a lot of noise. The sound was like a drill running, and it occurred around 2 in the morning. You'd think people would have respect for others, but I had a job interview coming up and I needed the sleep. I got out of bed, slipped on my slippers, and left my room to go to my neighbor's. I've never met any of my neighbors, and there weren't too many people living in the small apartment complex. I approached the door and knocked a few times. I could hear rumbling from the door as if the person was surprised to have someone knocking on their door. When the door opened, I was greeted with one disturbing sight that is forever going to be burned in my mind. The man that lived in the apartment was completely nude with his junk hanging out. I nearly cringed, as this guy looked like 40 years old and stunk as if he didn't shower. You could even see dirt on his skin. I stuttered for a moment. Did he not have enough decency to cover himself? But by his smug look, it seemed like he didn't care. "What can I help you with, love?" he says. I spoke softly, keeping my gaze on his face with his already missing teeth. "Sorry to bother you, but I'm trying to sleep and I can hear drilling coming from your room. It's kinda keeping me up. Could you please keep the noise down?" He was rubbing his stomach as if he was still trying to get turned on, and he chuckled while he reached out his hand to touch my shoulder. I moved back. "I'm sorry, love. I was just fixing some things up in my room. I promise not to be loud." "So have you been here long? I don't think I've seen any lovely ladies like you around." He had a deep voice, almost like a smoker with a wheezing tone, and I started to wonder if this guy was maybe a sex offender, or just some kind of creep. I didn't want to know his name, or go into his apartment as he invited me to come in. "I just moved in the complex a couple days ago. I'm sorry I bothered you, but I need to leave. It was, nice to meet you," I said. I quickly left, going back to my room in desperate need of a shower after seeing what I did. The guy was a creep, eyeing me like I was some kind of piece of meat. This was going to be one long year since my contract was for 12 months. Going back to sleep, I still felt uneasy, not sure why the guy would be drilling in his wall at 2 in the morning. I watch horror movies, so you can imagine what was running through my head. Another week went by and I just started school. I am part of the swimming team at my college, so I was just coming out of practice as I headed inside my apartment complex, and noticed the creepy landlord staring at me in my bathing suit. I couldn't help but wrap myself with my jacket. "Hello. How was practice? I must say that suit does not do you justice." He smiled, showing off his yellow teeth. I didn't want to be rude, so I smiled my thanks, and wasted no time heading up to my room to change and work on my homework. After finishing up my assignments, I needed to go to the laundry room to wash my clothes. I walked to the laundry room, unloaded my clothes, and found myself a seat and began texting my parents. About an hour after I put my clothes in the dryer, my neighbor came in with a Cheshire cat grin like from Alice in Wonderland. "Hello again, beautiful. I didn't quite get your name. I'm David." I didn't want to give him my real name since he reminded me of one of those creepers who want to take children in a van with candy. "Vanessa." He smiled, putting his clothes in the washer as his eyes trained on me. "I seen that new top you bought. It's quite striking on you." I froze. How the hell did he know what I had on in my own room? Now I started to feel very uncomfortable. "How do you know about my new top?" "You walked out with it on." That was not true. I never walked out with my new top on. Being in that room was like time stopped. I prayed for my clothes to be done so I could leave. How the hell could he see me? Then my thoughts went to the drilling I heard a few nights before. Once my clothes were done, I quickly got them folded and left for my room. After putting my clothes away, I started to feel on my walls near my bedroom. I watch far too many horror movies, so I was becoming paranoid. Moving my hands along the wall, I felt a small hole, probably the size of a nail, and I could see through to his apartment just barely. But that meant he could see me as well. I took my phone out and called my dad, explaining to him what was going on. He demanded that I come home, but I didn't tell him about the hole because I knew he would drag me home if he had to. Instead, my dad said he would fly to come check on me and spend the week with me. Upon hanging up the phone, I took a photo of the living room area and covered the hole with it. I went to the landlord the next day and demanded a new room, or at least for him to do something about the man. He told me, "Oh, it was just an accident, but we will talk to him." The guy didn't even care, but he almost seemed like he envied the idiot who thought it was smart to peep. I will keep you guys informed about what happens next. I know this guy is not going to leave me alone, and I hope to never catch him peeping into my room. I did go out and buy a taser and pepper spray just in case though. I'll start by saying I live in a bad neighborhood full of crime and drugs. The cops are on my street a lot and monitor it regularly. There have been quite a few breaking and enterings, mainly junkies looking for money or items to get a fix. I never imagined my house would be a target. Last night my friend had left, so I did my nightly routine of checking on my son, locking up the doors, and getting ready for bed. My door has 2 chain locks, and I lock the doorknob. I also have an alarm, I had just laid down and looked at my security camera that showed my front porch and front door. I saw 3 guys in hoodies walk up on my porch. I asked my husband if he's expecting someone, because it's not uncommon for friends or neighbors to come by, and he tells me he isn't. The one guy tries to open my door that I literally locked 2 minutes prior. Before I could get up and have a chance to react, the guy that tried to open my door then steps back when he realizes it's locked and kicks my front door open. The frame of the door that my chain locks are on ripped off the wall. My alarm goes off and the guys take off running. I didn't get a chance to see them as I was frantically looking for a weapon. I don't know who they were and why they kicked in my door. I can't imagine what would have happened if they had come in and done something, especially since my son was right upstairs. Needless to say, I did not sleep well that night, and I hope they don't decide to come back. A bit of backstory. I'm a 29-year-old female. A couple years ago, my 23-year-old cousin moved in with me, though this happened a couple years ago, making us 27 and 21 at the time. My cousin and I are known for taking late-night walks to the 7-Eleven. When I say late-night walks, I mean somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m. On the night in question, we were suffering an epic case of insomnia and were pretty bored. We had just gotten paid that night, so we thought, what the hell? Let's go on one of our late-night trips to the store. It was a cool night as it was in late winter when this happened. We started walking and talking about where our lives were currently headed, laughing at the ridiculousness of our frustrations with various things as we did. My cousin and I have always been super close, more like brother and sister. The walk to the store was pretty uneventful, but we got there with no problems, figured out what we wanted, paid, and left. About a block into our walk home, my cousin tells me he wants to stop for a minute to adjust the bags as they were giving him a hard time. I stopped and waited for him to get them together again. As we continued on to finish our last little bit of our walk, he says to me in a soft voice, "I didn't need to adjust the bags. I just wanted to find out for sure if the dude behind us was following us." He tells me to act normal, but pick up the pace a little and have my keys out. I do so. My cousin then goes on to tell me that this really shifty dude had been trailing us since we left the store. Once again, he decides to test the guy. He decided to take a bit of a detour for a while. Sure enough, the guy is never far behind. I begin to hear his footfalls at this point, making the situation all too real for me. It's at this point I start becoming concerned. Not scared, just creeped out at the possibilities of what this asshole could want with us. I never carry my purse at night, so I had no idea why he deems us fitting targets. But the creepiest part is yet to come. As we arrive back home, the guy is still on our asses. My cousin tells me to quickly go inside and lock the door and wait for him to come back in. I've never seen my cousin this worked up, so it was at this point that the fear started to creep in. I quickly darted inside, slammed and deadbolted the door, waiting in the stairwell for my cousin. He comes back in a minute later and tells me the worst part yet. He said that when he went outside to confront the guy, he left when he saw that only my cousin came out, not me. It was as if this jerk was waiting for me to come out by myself without the protection of my cousin, who was more than physically able to handle himself if shit got real. Once he saw my cousin come out alone, the guy started walking off. This is the part that scares me. The fact that the dude was obviously after me. The possibilities of what he wanted to do to me are endless. We still go on our night walks on occasion, though not as often as I've recently gotten married and my husband now lives with us. I'd love to see that asshole try this shit now. I'm not gonna let him change who I am or what I do. And I still love the night. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. And if you would like to help support the channel, make sure you go check out my Patreon or my Spreadshirt. It's a cool way to get some perks or get some cool merchandise. So with the story about the security system that actually prevented the break-in, well, it didn't prevent the break-in. I guess it prevented the entering. Either way, that's a good example of why to have your security in place before something happens. A lot of people think that they're well prepared for something like that, but they happen when you least expect it, and something as simple as a sound can make people run away. Even if you don't have the full security system, it's always nice to have something to deter people, whether it be a fake sign in your yard saying they're being recorded or the house is protected, or I know a lot of the dollar stores in the United States used to have magnets that you could connect to something that would screech whenever they separated. Just make sure you have something in place and a plan in mind, because a break-in can happen when you least expect it. You want the advantage to either have them scared away or to be notified before they actually enter. That way you have a little bit of time to react. Waking up to someone over you is going to be a lot worse than being woken up by a loud noise. Just my thoughts on the topic. I appreciate everyone checking out this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true. Bad bye. Yes. A few weeks ago, a friend of mine asked me to take him some stuff to Houston because of the flooding. His house was fine, but his neighborhood was not, and he was unable to get needed essentials. I agreed to do it even though I lived 18 hours away because I love a good road trip. It was 2 days of driving and I had just crossed the Texas state line. My legs were cramping really bad, so I stopped at the first rest area I came to. I needed to stretch because I couldn't drive like that, especially with so many hours left. I ran in to use the bathroom, and as I was heading out of the building, a man was holding the door for me. I was walking incredibly slow to get to the door because of my cramping legs, but because he continued to hold it, I sped up and did a little jog. I thanked him and we both walked out. He was a truck driver, and I was also driving a truck that I parked in the big truck parking. I only had a small trailer attached, but parking with the big rigs was just easier. I guess I don't look like a truck driver because this man was acting very nervous with me trailing behind him. Again, my legs were cramping, so I had to walk slow. He kept looking around to check and see if I was still behind him, and I thought I'd stop and do a little stretching because I could tell he was really nervous, but I have never had anyone get that scared around me before. As we started leaving the sidewalk and entering the parking lot, he was clearly very agitated. I was hoping he'd walk to a truck that was away from mine, because he was so nervous I didn't know what he was going to do. But of course he was parked right next to me. As I walked behind him, he started to speed up his pace. He ran the few remaining feet to his door and quickly unlocked it while looking at me. He locked his doors and watched me like I had something planned for him. I jumped into my truck and sped away. I don't know why he was so afraid of me. Maybe he had a dead hooker in the back seat. This happened a few hours ago, upon waking up. And thinking about it, I realized that I most likely just scared the crap out of some poor old man. To start though, you have to understand the situation I recently found myself in. My beloved cat, we'll call him Billy, went missing about 2 weeks ago. I've plastered my neighborhood in posters, begging for anyone who sees him to contact me. Today, after weeks of silence, I got a call from a woman claiming to have spotted Billy in the graveyard behind my house. So naturally I got dressed and headed out to search for him. But again, some background information is needed. This weekend I came down with an awful cold. I've been sick for days and my nose had gotten so dry sometimes it just pours blood. My hair is matted and my voice currently sounds like a transgender Shirley Temple. My fever has me constantly drenched in sweat. So overall I'm a mess. After walking the perimeter of the graveyard and my neighborhood, I decided to walk through the graveyard to search for him in there. So I strolled in calling, "Billy," over and over again. As I got deeper into the cemetery, I came across a car. It seemed to be some old man who was dropping off flowers for someone. I just kept walking and calling out for my missing cat. As I got closer to the old man, I noticed he was staring at me and backing away. I found his behavior kind of strange, but being sick, exhausted, and solely focused on finding my cat. I ignored it and just kept walking. As soon as I passed him, though, I heard a car door slam, and by the time I turned around to see if he was okay, he was speeding out of the cemetery. I finished my walk, went home, and fell asleep. It was only upon waking up that I realized how creepy that must have been for the old man. He was dropping off flowers in a secluded graveyard in the middle of the afternoon when some girl, drenched in sweat with matted hair and blood dripping out of her nose, starts coming towards him yelling, "Billy! Billy, come here, Billy!" over and over with a voice so deep she sounds like a demon. So, to the man I creeped out in the graveyard today, let's meet sometime so I can try to explain what just happened. A little update. A few more hours have passed, and I just got news that Billy was found dead. Rest in peace, Billy.